Welcome to BookHuddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today our guest is April Henry. Thank you for joining us today, April.
I am so glad to be here.
She is the author of thrillers and mysteries, and it is just bringing me back to everything I loved reading in high school. And I wonder what I've been doing because I'm so excited. I was hooked. I was hooked with this book in the blood, and I can't
Well,
wait to talk about it, April. But first, April, I'd love to give you a second. Introduce yourself. Tell us just a little bit about you besides that you're an author.
besides that, I'm an author. I grew up in a little logging town in Southern Oregon, and it was a small town, and I never felt like I fit in. So now I live in Portland, which is a much better fit for me. In my free time, I like to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kind of like my dress. I wish I were a purple belt, but I'm only a blue belt. Maybe I'm trying to manifest it.
Nice.
And
You'll get there.
it's super fun because it's all a bunch of guys who work in HVAC, and we're not the same type of people at all, but it gives me exposure to different people and different ideas, and just being around people who are like young enough to be my kids, or it's getting to the point sometimes grandkids.
I love it though. That's awesome. And you just started as an adult. You're just like, I'm gonna go
I
learn
did start
jiu-jitsu.
as an adult. I've been doing it for like, I don't know, 12 years. I'm like the world's oldest blue belt. But I have like so many things that are kind of half broken. Like my partners sometimes will wrap up my legs and then look at this horrified look on their face and they'll be like, "What is that creaking sound?" And I'm like, "It's my knees. Just ignore it. You're not going to
Keep
hurt
going,
them.
keep going.
They're already, they're already damaged. You're not going to hurt them more than they already are."
Oh my goodness. All right, I have to ask, did you get into it because you write thrillers?
No, kickboxing class was my gateway drug. I
Okay.
really liked it. We didn't do any contact. It was just like bags. And then
Nice.
the teacher had a black belt in Kembo, which is similar to Kung Fu. I took classes from him, and then he got fired because he was kind of a unorganized person.
Okay.
And then I did Kung Fu, and then they said, you have to do some stuff where you fight on the ground to go up in rank. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'll do it as little as possible. It's weird and creepy to be rolling around on the floor with some guy. And then I liked it. It was like a big puzzle. And I left Kung Fu behind, and now I just do Jiu-Jitsu.
I love that. That's weird and creepy.
It is kind of weird and creepy. Bridget Kemmerer actually took Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because she had a character she thought should be doing it, and
Nice.
she knew nothing about it. She didn't even know it was like wrestling. So when she went to her first class, her partner said, "Do you want to start on top?" And she said, "On top of what?" So she didn't realize that there was all this close physical contact.
I love it. On top of what are we doing? Oh man, I love it. All right, so I love to get to know you based on a book. And so we're gonna go with one of my favorite middle grades. It's called Candy Shop War, and they use candies that are magic, that give them
Okay.
powers. And so you get to pick what would the candy be like, what would it taste like, and then what power would it give you?
Hmm. Um, I I really like payday bars, so I
Okay,
could see something that had that caramel,
nice.
that sweetness, and then the nuttiness. I like nuts and all kinds of things. So in terms of a superpower, hmm, you know, I don't know. I don't really want to be invisible. Flight seems like it would be pretty
Yes.
cool.
I love
Or
that.
if you want to go for something, I would love to have like magic healing
Ooh,
hands
yeah.
that I'd fix my own knees with that. I'd fix
Yes.
other people. So maybe I'd go with magic healing hands. I
Ooh, I
would,
like that.
although I'm sure it would be just like anything else where you get something good, you're going to regret it. Everyone's going to be
Yeah.
trying to brush up against your hands, and maybe you're exhausted all the time because they've used up all your energy in
Ah,
healing and they want you to do minor stuff, or you're kidnapped and forced to put your hands on people. So you can see I have kind of a dark
I
track on my
love
mind.
that. I love that's where your mind went right afterwards because I've asked that question so many times and I don't think I've ever had somebody. I mean, lots of books, all magic comes with a price and stuff.
Right.
I love that you immediately went there. Oh shoot. What what next? All right, April, tell us what this new book of yours coming out, In the Blood, is about.
Okay. So here it is in all its glory. I just got my finished hardcovers 2 days ago. So
Nice.
In the Blood is about Tessa. She's a high school senior. She's adopted. Her parents, she's always known that. But she feels kind of like out of place with her parents. They have a kind of accidental biological child or that they didn't expect to have. So the three of them always feel like a tight unit, and Tessa's always felt like she doesn't fit in. She's long wondered about who her biological parents are, and she and her best friend Elle have created all these different scenarios. Tessa is also a budding writer, so she writes about it. And for her 18th birthday, her friend Elle gives her a ancestry DNA test, and she takes it. And they are going to try and figure out who her birth parents are. And it's hard. I worked to make it so that the situation wasn't easy. And she ends up also working with her biology partner, Victor. And the three of them are trying to solve it. But what she doesn't know is she's actually the biological daughter of the Portland Phantom, a serial killer that their law enforcement is still trying to track down. So, that's another be careful what you wish for.
Right? Right? I was in the airport when I was reading it. I was traveling with college students. And so I was telling them what I was reading. And so I told them about it before I started. And then I was like, oh, she is the daughter of the serial killer. And like we're going back and forth. And yeah, it was fun. I think I got a bunch of people interested in reading it.
All right.
So, as you have DNA in this, we introduced it early and it's a big theme throughout. Did you research DNA? Tell us about researching for the book and any interesting paths that
Well,
you down.
um, if you probably have done your ancestry and stuff, but I was really curious after my parents died. I'm the eldest. I ended up with a bunch of family folder photos, like boxes, and many of them were unlabeled, but obviously over 100 years old. Some had like mother written on it, which wasn't super helpful. But
Right?
I was like, who are these people?
Whose mother?
And I was also curious. There's also always been rumors in my family that, I mean, like everyone else, do you have Cherokee blood? At
Yes,
least
like
we didn't have Cherokee Princess, at least we didn't have the full-on uh, thing. So I paid for my brother and sister and I to all have ancestry DNA tests,
nice.
and really didn't know. I don't think I barely knew the names of my grandparents, so n
Right.
not great grandparents at all. So I started trying to put together. Um, where we came from. And like I figured out my great grandmother's last name was Bond.
Okay.
And there was a whole bunch of people we matched that had Bond as a last name. And
Yeah.
they all descended from this couple. And she could have been their daughter, but she showed up on no censuses. Her name was never on
Oh,
any census with them.
okay.
So a few years ago, though, I did get somebody to look at Civil War records, and she was on a list of family names for
Oh,
that.
cool.
So, but
Yeah.
I was just going off of what I saw on DNA and the same last name and being in the same area. So it's a, it is a rabbit hole. You can just spend forever. And I started discovering like all these family secrets. Like there was a woman that clearly matched me on one side of the family, and I was like, "Oh, you're obviously a Meeker.
Right.
Would you, if you ever want to build out your family tree, I'll help you because we're clearly, not that far apart." Well, it
Yes.
turned out she was the daughter of my mom's cousin, and he
Okay.
never knew that she existed.
Oh,
So I helped her reconnect with her dad. And
okay.
luckily, he hadn't been married when she was conceived, and she's kind of like the bonus child. Um, but I started finding all these old family secrets, and that uh, there's killers in my family, arsonists, bigamists, just all kinds of the guy who faked his own death.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, this is just so fascinating. And then I'm like, well, what does it? I really wanted to think about nature and nurture and our own decisions. My parents were raised in not great homes, but they
Okay.
raised us well.
Nice.
And then, um, but that, so we have that, like, how much does how you raised matter?
Yes.
How much does your ancestry matter? If you descend from like these criminals, does that
Yeah.
affect you? And finally, how much do your own choices matter? So I wanted to play around with that in writing the book. And
Oh,
DNA is fascinating. I did something in there. There have been, um, there was a case of a guy who was worked at sheriff's office and needed a bone marrow transplant
Mm.
for his leukemia.
Yeah.
And the criminalists there were like fascinated. They're like, we're going to start testing you all the time. So if your bone marrow makes your blood, so
Yes.
if
Right.
you have someone's donated bone marrow to you, if you leave your blood someplace, it's going to look like that it's their blood. But
Oh.
interestingly, which I didn't get into the book, you would think that it would be very clear, but it started being like he had skin cells that showed a mix of him
Oh.
and the
Not
donor.
just the blood then.
It wasn't just the blood, it started going
Mm.
places they didn't expect. There have been cases, there was a case where a woman sued for, she wanted child support, and they
Yeah.
made both of them take tests.
Uh-huh.
And they said to him, "You're definitely the dad." And then they
Uh-huh.
said to the mom, "But you're not the mom."
She's like, I birthed this child.
It turns out she was a chimera when two twins come fused together in the
Uh-huh.
womb.
Oh.
So her uterus, I guess, or whatever made the the fallopian tubes must have been from the sister that she
Oh,
absorbed.
wow.
And so she was showing up as like their aunt for her
Oh
own
my
children
gosh.
because she kind of was. She was this. If you've ever met anyone, I have met a couple of people with one like green eye and one brown eye.
Okay. Yeah.
They're a chimera, or same with
Oh,
animals. It's a
okay.
sign that there were two organisms that fused together.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I've seen a dog like that, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen anybody. So, yeah, it's like if you're ever the donor for bone marrow, it's like you have to sign a disclaimer and be like, listen, you've got to thoroughly investigate things before you're putting me in jail.
Yes.
Because that like messes with a person to like go to jail when there's nothing to,
Well, as far as I know, that hasn't happened, but there was one person that they had DNA from a crime scene
Uh-huh.
and it matched somebody on their database. And then they went, and the guy had been in prison when the murder was committed. And
Oh,
they were like,
wow.
wait, how is this possible? Well, they were identical. No, he had gotten a bone marrow transplant from his brother.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so it wasn't that hard for them to figure it out after that, but that was still
Oh.
pretty interesting.
That is so crazy. Like all these things that I didn't know. Do you have any other stories? Just something fun of what you did to research to put yourself in a state of mind for a character that you can share with
Um,
us?
I looked at apps that are, and they probably jump forward even more, where you can actually get an app, have another person's face, and it will move with you, and you can do like a video
Right.
phone call, and it has fairly limited things, but if you open your mouth really wide, the
Uh-huh.
person that you are pretending to be will do that. If you raise your
Oh,
eyebrows, it will do that. So. Um, that was interesting. And then just looking at, I don't think I even learned any genetics in biology when
uh-huh.
I was in high school. So what we understand has changed a lot. Like I can
Yeah.
remember reading more than one book where the plot was two brown-eyed parents have a blue-eyed child, and then it's going to be
Right.
revealed that that's not possible, but it turns out that's
Oh,
wrong. A lot of things that they thought they understood about DNA turned out not to
right.
be as simple as they thought. So, and there's something called genetic recombination where the egg and the sperm come together and they swap cells, which I didn't
Okay.
know about. There's just a lot
Oh,
I just didn't
I
understand.
love that you're such a student as
I
you're
bought a
writing.
biology textbook
Nice.
so
I
that I
love
could have
that.
them giving lessons. And I looked at lesson plans. Everything that they do in the high school class is a real lesson
Oh,
plan.
I love it. And I tell you what, this is going to be a great example teaching high schoolers about the dangers of AI too, like what you were talking about with
Yes.
the app. Oh my goodness, because yes, people would be very, misled. I wanted to ask because as like I was saying, I was telling these college students about it. They're like, "Oh, I saw a documentary about this where the kid of the serial killer, the child of a serial killer and their reactions and stuff. Are your stories ever based on,
I
things that you
got
see or
several
something?
books from there's a book by the BTK killer's daughter,
Okay.
and she's still assisting the FBI. She was raised by him and felt she actually had a pretty good childhood. So
Wow.
now she's having to come to terms with the fact that her father's a monster.
Yeah.
There's another one by the daughter of a more local killer. He was known as the Happy Face Killer because he would send notes to the media with happy faces on them. And so
Creepy.
she also was grappling with it. And then I guess what started it was years ago. Diane Downs was a pretty notorious woman in Oregon who
Mhm.
uh, shot her children and then herself, but not very badly, and told the police a shaggy-haired stranger did it. It was just she was dating some guy that didn't want kids. So
Oh my gosh. Sick.
she had actually managed to escape
Uh-huh.
from prison, got pregnant, and then that baby was given up for adoption. And so the girl, when she was a teenager, found out her mom was Diane Downs, and it sent her into a tailspin, knowing that she was kind of the daughter of this monster. It took her a long time.
Wow.
So I've always, that kind of thing of like, what do you do? There's
Yeah.
also, I think I read it after I finished the book, but there's a book by like a woman named April Belasio or something
Right.
where it's called Raised by a Serial Killer. And she
Right.
realized she was the one I think who turned her dad in. She realized, hey,
Wow.
all the places that we lived, there was always a couple that was murdered.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she put it all together. But again, it's that coming to terms of like, what does it mean for you if
Right.
you're descended from someone who does evil things?
Oh, wow. I love that big theme about family and the importance of, what you choose to make yourself to be and who is your real family and what you were talking about that. Can you share anything else with us about your experience with that or your thoughts on that through your writing?
I guess I feel really lucky that I was grounded by having these good parents. And so that makes it easier, I think, to explore bad things in fiction because they're not totally echoing for me. Like
Right.
I'm not dealing with trying to, in fiction, deal with something awful that my parents did.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so for you, going back to you, I love that Tessa's a writer, and so I was wondering if it was reflecting on you. There's a line that says, but so she's talking about, do people realize what it's like to be a writer? But did they know the thrill of a story unspooling in your mind? Characters who seemed more real than people, scenes that left even you gasping in surprise. With just a few black marks on white paper, Tessa could transport readers into other worlds. So do you feel like that's the way it is for you? Were you writing that and being like this?
There have been times I've been surprised by things that have happened. I'll be like, what? Oh my goodness. I'm just like
Right.
shocked that something happened.
I
And my
just wrote
characters
that.
And my characters have done things that I haven't expected. I remember in a book called Run, Hide, Fight Back,
hmm
I wanted to have a character. They were in a space with an acoustical tile ceiling, and I needed them to get into the room next door.
Right.
So I talked to the people who make acoustical tile ceilings, and the tiles can only hold 50 pounds of weight.
Oh,
They
okay.
said if you could get something up there like a board that could spread the weight out, and if you had someone who was thin. So I had this character, Grace, who was undergoing cancer treatment. She was very skinny,
Okay.
underweight. I gave her a shelf that she could put up
Right.
there. I had someone was boosting her up there and and she wouldn't do it. I was like, no, Grace would not do this. And I had to change it around. But it was funny because I was totally in my plot. But
Right.
now sometimes as a writer, I'll read a book where I'll think, why is the character doing this? We were told that he doesn't like people and yet now he's putting himself out. Or,
Right.
there's something they do that doesn't seem true to their sense of
Right.
self. And you can tell that the author plotted it and then refused to think about whether the character they
Mm.
created would actually do this thing.
I like it that it's like this is a real person. This is what they would or wouldn't do. Right?
Right.
This is their real life. Okay. And so Elle is Tessa's best friend in the book, and
Hmm.
she's her first reader. Who is your first reader when you finish a draft?
It's probably me. I mean, I actually do not, my husband does not like anything violent,
Okay.
scary, death, none of that. I have a critique group, and when
Okay.
we meet, they are very good. But usually, my first reader is going to be my agent. What
Nice.
I do when I finish a draft, which has been, for those of you who are writers, it's a super helpful tip. I know that my first chapter I read and reread and reread. So if
Right.
I finish a draft and I start on the first chapter, by the time I get to the last chapter, that energy is
Yeah.
going to be dissipated. So I will finish the book. I'll try and set it aside for like a week, and then the first thing I'll do is I'll pick it up and read the last chapter.
Oh,
Then
nice.
I'll read the second to the last and the last chapter, the third to the last, second
I
to the
like that.
last. It's like combing out tangled hair. You wouldn't just start at the top and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yank the comb all the way down. You're going to need to do it in increments. And
Ah,
that helps my last part of my book be as polished as the first part that I've gone over and over. So that to me has been really useful. But yeah, I'm probably my own first reader and then my agent after that. I know a lot of people have beta readers and a more active critique group. I mean, mine's been taking a break for a while, so,
all right.
but it works for me, so that's how I do
Nice.
it.
Well, I really like that technique of starting from
Combing.
the end. Yeah, combing it that way. That is awesome. All right. So, as you've heard readers or talk about it in person or through reviews, what have been things that you love of what they've said about your writing?
Oh, I mean, I like it when they say it's disturbing or
Right? That's a
suspenseful or,
compliment.
uh, thrilling. So, page turner, I love all those kind of compliments. Sometimes I got a few reviews that were like, well, if there's a point of view from the serial killer, is that too much? But one
Uh-huh.
review was like, is that too much? Or is it just right?
Yeah.
So, because I guess I do want teens to think about there are predators in this world,
Yes.
and you need to be aware that not everyone is going to have your best interest at heart.
Right. Yeah, I think my husband's going to be like, oh, great, Karen. Because I used to always, when we first got married, watch like Law and Order kind of shows and all
Hmm.
that. And it would freak me out. And it's been a long time since I have. And so, yeah, me reading thriller now, he's going to be like, oh, good. That's just what we want in her head. All right. But tell us, why do you feel that readers love thrillers and stories with high tension?
Oh, well, first of all, it's a like any book, it's a fun way to explore a different world without actually having to be in the world.
Yeah.
Either you could read a book about a professional figure skater, and if the person did their research or has been one, you can kind of feel like you're taking on someone else's life.
Yes.
So, um, the another reason I think it's a safe thrill. You
Yes.
can put the book aside if it gets too intense. You can stop reading it altogether. It's your own imagination is doing the work, then making you scared or whatever.
Right.
And I think I hear from a lot of girls who say that it has helped them think about what would they do in a dangerous situation.
Yes.
Every now and then I'll hear from a girl who has this kind of a sad situation that echoes like the main character. Like
Right.
I had a character whose mom kept meeting new men on the internet and she would move the daughter around with her. And a girl just recently wrote me and said that that was her life, that her mom
Right.
was constantly meeting new men and
Ah,
and moving states to be with these guys and then discovering they weren't quite what they said they were. And for thrillers, I think it's just that opportunity to think, could I be smart? And I try to give the message that if you thought and you were clever, you could survive it.
yes. Oh, I love it. And I feel like there's a small population that live a life that is a thriller, but we've talked about these people exist out there, right? Unfortunately, these people exist, but we do have tension in our lives, right? And then to be able to go and experience this, it's like to me like an escape from our own tension, but
Hmm.
in a way that we can handle.
It's a safe thing.
Yeah.
You can be scared and then close the book and then it's not your real life. Your real life is much better usually.
Right, right. Okay, well, as I go and research authors, sometimes I discover some fun things. And I saw
Okay.
that you sent a story to Roald Dahl when you were
Yes, I
12. Tell us about this because I thought this was so fun.
Well, since it's a podcast here, I can reach over and pull this off of my wall. So
Yes.
here it is.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Roald Dahl, when I was maybe in like fifth or sixth grade, I loved Charlie and the Chocolate
Yeah.
Factory and really the whole book really resonated with me. I mean, Charlie is like ridiculously poor, but we were poor, and I kind of related to it. And I wrote a short story about a 6 foot tall frog named Herman who loved peanut butter. And I decided that Roald Dahl would like to read it. And
Yeah.
my dad, could have said, well, that's a dumb idea. But instead, he showed me in the front of a book, it has the address to the publisher. He
Yes.
said, why don't you try sending your story to him, care with the publisher? So this is back before photocopies were common or anything. I took my actual story, there's no record of it, and mailed it off to him. And he sent me back this postcard, and it says, Dear April, I loved your story about Herman the Frog. I read it aloud to my daughter Ophelia, who also loved it. I read it to my secretary Hazel, who giggled. Lots of love, Roald Dahl. I actually had a second postcard from him, and in my 12-year-old mind, we were probably like friends. I mean,
Yes.
it's not,
Right.
we weren't, but and
Still,
he
two
he
postcards,
actually
practically.
took it to lunch with him and showed it to his editor. And
Uh-huh.
she had a magazine called Puff and Post. She
Yes.
contacted me and asked if she could publish the story. And I don't have that anymore.
Yep.
Okay, I have gone on eBay and bought. You have to find someone who is a hoarder,
Right.
like 54 years ago, has all their, it'd be like keeping your weekly readers from 54 years ago.
Yes.
So I have bought various issues. I haven't been able to come across it. What's funny is I read, some of all the other writing I think was just from British children, but there was one
Right.
from this guy that wrote a poem about a news photo of a fireman carrying a little girl out of a burning building.
Yes.
And he wrote about that. And I thought, man, that is so good. He was like 11 or something. So
Right.
I Googled him, and he was a reporter at The Guardian. And I'm
Oh,
like, well, are you the same person? And he was really like dismissive, or like
no.
he's like, yeah, I did write it, but it wasn't very good. And I was like,
Oh, geez.
No, it was so good that I looked you up based on
Yes,
it.
right?
So that was cool.
Well, I love this. I love, and I actually just barely one of your posts on Instagram recently that you were like, when I read this book and it was a bad book and I kept thinking it would get better and it didn't. And then when I realized it was from a big publishing house, I was like, well, I can write a bad
It's
story.
exactly, I was like, man, is that all it takes is to write a bad book? Because like I was like, I could definitely
I
write
could do
something
that.
this bad.
I am in.
I'm in.
So, well, I love it. And you've written what, 30 something now? And this is
32nd
a
is
bestseller?
this in the blood.
In the Blood
And
is 32. Okay, it's incredible to me. I think that is so awesome. And that your dad, was like, yeah, let's try it. Let's believe in children. Let's believe in ourselves. And I think it's great. I find it inspiring, April. This is
when I
just,
first got published, he gave me his copy of Characters Make Your Story, and it turned
uh,
out he had wanted to be a novelist, but between working a million hours and I
right?
think a lot of just worry or anxiety or
Yes.
feeling that he wasn't good enough, I've never found anything he wrote other than like a diary,
Yeah.
and he was a newspaper and TV writer, so he wrote that stuff, but he didn't, as far as I know, he didn't ever write a novel.
Well, I think it's great that his daughter did. That's awesome. Can you tell us, April, about anything coming up next after In the Blood?
In September 2027, there's going to be a new book in the Girl Stolen world
Okay.
featuring Cheyenne, who's blind, and her boyfriend Griffin.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be called Dig Another Grave, and
Wow.
they are hiking in the Oregon woods when they stumble across a man digging a secret grave. And then they're on the run. And so that one was really interesting. I connected with a bunch of blind hikers, blind birders, which I didn't even know was a thing, but
Blind
they're not
birders, is
bird,
that what you said?
yeah, they're not bird watchers. They do it all through
Listening.
audio.
Oh,
Yeah. And if you're really into it, you'll get like some big headphones or you'll get like a fancy mic. There was just a lot that B, as a sighted person, was dumb about. I thought, well, why would you go hiking? But there are people who really, really love to hike and are
mhm.
blind. And one of them actually sent me a cane. It's got a cross between a blind cane and a trekking pole. So
Oh,
a real blind cane, you could not put any weight on it when you were hiking. It would
right, right.
probably bend or snap. But this is
Yes.
meant to be used like a trekking pole to kind of
Oh,
plant and haul yourself up or just take your weight. and it has a roller ball in the tip, and you use it slightly differently. He's
Yeah.
given me a bunch of instructions so that when my
Oh,
character thinks about it, she would use it correctly.
oh, that is so awesome that people respond to you, that you do all this research. And I love it that you're not just sitting here typing and like, this might happen, this might be
Or,
possible, but you
or I
put
saw
you
this
put
on
into it.
TV one time
Right,
because a lot
right,
of that's wrong.
right. Oh, I love it. It makes it feel so much more real, right? Reading your works. Well, can I get you to recommend a favorite children's book? Now, this can be for any age, 0 to
Okay.
18. If you want to do young adult like you do, or if you want to do middle grade or picture book, share with us a book that you have loved.
I really liked Megan Lally's first book, That's Not My Name. It's a girl who
Ah,
wakes up and she's been injured,
okay.
and then her dad comes and she still has no memory, and he takes her back to where they're living, and she starts thinking, is this all true? What's really going on?
Right,
That book was her first, I'm sure it wasn't her first book, but it was her
right.
first published book. And I blurbed it and I was like, this is really good. And then I got to watch it like hit the New York Times list like
Awesome.
almost immediately. She has a new one out that I really liked called We Won't All Survive. But her first one, That's Not My Name, is just excellent.
Neat. All right, I will look it up because I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff I read when I was a senior in high school,
Hmm.
and I just got away from it. I don't know. I found my happy place in other stuff and fantasy, and I'm like, ooh, both, all of them, all the books.
All the books.
Yes. Well, thank you, April, for taking the
All
time with us
right.
today, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed this interview with April Henry. Hey, can I ask a favor of you now? If you enjoy my podcast, can you take a second? Please go and rate and review BookHuddle. It really helps not only authors when they get ratings and reviews, but it also helps creators like me for people to be able to find the podcast because there are more ratings and reviews. So just go out there, rate and review it, and you will make my day.